I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning again. First item on our agenda is our consent agenda. We have an extension of an on-call contract, and I'll move to approve that.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Then I'll call for the question. Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Freeman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Next item is some citizens' questions and comments on our agenda items. Anybody out there have a question or comment on one of our agenda items? Anybody online?
No comments.
Move to the next one. I think this is a letter of support Commissioner Freeman would like to do.
Yeah, so I know this was part of our packet, so my fellow commissioners have read this letter, so I'm not gonna read it word for word. But basically, this is a letter supporting some of the wood products industry here in Douglas County and in Oregon around creating a more even playing field between us and Canadian veneer products. Currently, there's a process in place that creates duties for dimensional lumber, but not for veneer type products. So there's a coalition working together that is trying to explain to the federal government the challenges of veneer products and veneer itself being dumped in the United States and impossible for our local mills and industry to compete with it. So I'd move to support, to vote to sign the letter of support.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? None, I'll call for the question. Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is another similar thing. Commissioner Freeman, you wanna talk about it?
Well, I'll talk briefly, but actually I'm gonna ask Commissioner Boyce if he'd read the resolution, but I do some of the public health work on these under our public health folks, and we do a considerable amount of enforcement around youth tobacco purchasing and things. So we're gonna do a resolution of affirming that and also making sure our position's clear on not wanting to over-regulate what adults do. So with that, I'd have.
Sure. So this is a resolution of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners regarding proposed state legislation restricting the sale of flavored tobacco and nicotine products. Whereas Douglas County Board of Commissioners recognizes that protecting the health and safety of children and preventing youth access to tobacco and nicotine products are important public interests. And whereas Oregon law already prohibits the sale of tobacco and nicotine products to persons under 21 years of age and requires retailers to obtain and maintain state licenses while complying with extensive age verification and regulatory requirements. And whereas Douglas County supports vigorous enforcement of existing laws governing the sale of tobacco and nicotine products and believes retailers who violate those laws should be held accountable through appropriate penalties and license enforcement. And whereas the Oregon Legislative Assembly is considering legislation that would prohibit the sale of flavored tobacco and nicotine products throughout the state of Oregon. And whereas the board recognizes that reasonable people disagree regarding whether product prohibitions are the most effective means of improving public health, and that studies have reached differing conclusions regarding their long-term effectiveness and unintended consequences. And whereas the board is concerned that broad prohibitions on otherwise lawful products may result in unintended consequences, including economic harm to licensed local retailers, increased purchases from neighboring jurisdictions or online sellers, and the potential growth of unregulated or illicit markets that are more difficult to monitor and enforce. Whereas the board further recognizes that many adult Oregonians lawfully use tobacco or nicotine products, and that public policy should seek an appropriate balance between protecting public health, respecting lawful adult consumer choice, and supporting legitimate local businesses operating in compliance with state law. And whereas Douglas County believes that public resources are often best directed towards enforcing existing laws, preventing youth access, educating consumers, and ensuring retailer compliance before imposing additional statewide prohibitions. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Douglas County, Oregon, that, Section 1, Douglas County reaffirms its commitment to protecting youth from tobacco and nicotine use through strong enforcement of existing state laws, retailer compliance programs, and public education. Section 2, the board supports continued enforcement of Oregon's tobacco retail licensing requirements and believes that licensed retailers should be held accountable for violations through consistent regulatory enforcement. Section 3, the board respectfully urges the Oregon Legislative Assembly to carefully consider the potential economic, enforcement, and public health impacts of any statewide prohibition on flavored tobacco and nicotine products, including the possibility of unintended consequences affecting licensed retailers, consumers, and local governments. Section 4, the board encourages, in Section 5, the Douglas County Board of Commissioners directs that copies of this resolution be transmitted to the Governor of Oregon, members of the Douglas County Legislative Delegation, the President of the Oregon Senate, the Speaker of the Oregon House of Representatives, and the appropriate legislative committees considered such legislation.
So I will move to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into this resolution.
With that, I'll call for the question. Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye and motion passes. Thank you. Number 5 is management and finance. See, we have our CFO here.
Morning Commissioners, Dan Wilson, Management, Finance and Tax Collection Department. This is a board order designating the News Review as a newspaper for publication for the Douglas County 2026 foreclosure list. This is an annual action for our tax foreclosure process.
So I'll move to approve the board order.
I'll second.
Just,
It's kind of amazing. Are they, how does that qualify?
I was gonna ask the same question. I know it's getting more,
I reread the Oregon, revised statute, and it's clearly states newspaper. It does allow for electronic newspaper, but it defined it as a newspaper.
It doesn't have to be print, doesn't have to be widely circulated and.
Well, the widely
yeah, that's where it gets sort of confusing. If it didn't say newspaper, I would almost assume our e-newsletter is probably as good or better circulation than that, and it would be less money. I mean, we already are doing ours, but
correct.
since it has the word newspaper in the statute, it makes it more difficult to move away from that.
You know, certainly wanna be in compliance, so.
I just,
Other discussion?
well, other than, I think we're probably at a point where we need to continue to talk to our legislators about, if the idea of this is to get the information out to the most people,
Which it is, yeah.
which it is, I think technology has changed the way that happens. And the law hasn't kept up with that change.
Definitely agree.
I have a motion and a second. Anything else? Call for the question. Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Next item on the agenda, number 6, is a Parks Department item.
Morning Commissioners, Mark Wall, Parks Department. Before you have an order authorizing the purchase of one CXT Cortez with 2 single-user fully accessible flush restrooms from CXT. Total cost $145,329 based on the state pricing agreement. This is for the Dan Van Slyke staging area project and is 75% funded through an ATV grant in 2616.
Move to approve the order authorizing the purchase.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any questions or comments?
Well, just real quick, you talked about the ATV grant. Commissioner Boyce has done a really great job over at the coast with those improvements that have a variety of different grants. There's always a concern about, taxpayer dollars paying for it. Much like the campground stuff, funding, a lot of that funding comes from registration fees from campgrounds. This ATV grant fund comes from the registration of your ATVs and the permits you buy to use those on public land. So I guess technically those are taxpayers that are buying the either the RV licensing or the ATV program when you buy the stickers to put on your ATV. But those are an option thing, they're not really a tax, they're more of a
User
a
fee.
user fee. So this helps provide facilities through that grant funding for those people that are using those, those type of vehicles in these areas. So nice job getting the grant, but there seems to be some confusion still out there about people's property tax paying for this stuff, and in fact, that's not what's happening.
And I certainly appreciate that as a user there, that's great. I assume that ATV grant, it might not be appropriate then for the beach access parking lot there.
No,
That's what it seems.
that's on us.
Too bad, be a nice one there too.
Yeah.
There's other grant opportunities for that.
Yeah.
Nice to get away from the vault toilets.
Yes, it would. All right, I'll call for the question, Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you, Mark. Next item is a Public Works Department contract. I'm gonna take care of that for our ailing Scott Adams. I wish him well, he had neck surgery last week, pretty well, I guess. This is a contract between Douglas County and Smalley and Sons Construction to provide some miscellaneous road maintenance, and it's on an on-call as needed basis. I move to approve the contract.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. I have one little off agenda item I'd like to discuss, and it has to do with, I know that we're an intervener in a lawsuit that and on the dunes, and maybe Commissioner Freeman, can you talk about this a little bit more?
Well, I think
Commissioner Boyce?
Commissioner Boyce, either way is fine.
Yeah, so when the Center for Biological Diversity filed the lawsuit against the Forest Service for the issues around the coastal martin, we became an intervener in that lawsuit along with another party. And we have been assisting in the defense of that lawsuit and a party to the happenings within the lawsuit. And most people are probably aware that last week, prior to a big permitted event at the coast, a federal judge issued preliminary injunction closing off some areas of the dunes. And we need to be able to respond to that injunction by filing an appeal in a timely manner. And then there's gonna be some decision-making that happens along with that, that's also gonna be timely in order to keep up with the other parties in the suit. So what I'm hoping for is a delegation of authority to work with our council to make those decisions on that lawsuit.
I would move to grant a delegation of authority to Commissioner Boyce for the decision-making around the lawsuit, Forest Service and the sand dunes.
I'll second that.
And the part that I'm the most concerned about is the injunction was supposed to have been just for the duration, the closure orders were just for the duration of the permitted event during last week and over the weekend, but now we're being told that she's planning to keep those areas of the dunes closed.
The judges, yeah, the challenge is, of course, is the lawsuits around whether the Forest Service should have consulted on the Pacific martin, weasel, call it what you want. And I actually think the Forest Service got it right in that is not historical habitat for that particular animal. That sand dunes are historically were open sand and not good habitat for this particular animal. So I like that the county has intervened. Douglas County, along with Coos County, who also is affected by some of these decisions. The initial lawsuit was around and focused on large events. So really there's one big permitted event over there, which has already happened. So the concept of keeping a preliminary injunction in place that's broader than what even the lawsuit was seeking to affect, it seems really odd. So I like that you'll have the ability to be quick and nimble, but for the most part of the lawsuit, the plaintiffs weren't even asking for a preliminary injunction, so it kind of came out of nowhere.
Right.
So, and again, the lawsuit's really around large events, large permitted events, and now they're talking about, and it's not just the closures, but it's also curfew, which historically has not been in place there, so thank you for staying on top of that.
Yep.
A little bit of advocacy from the bench.
Well, you don't know what conversations go on outside of the hearings, but again, we can't find in the record where there was even a request for an injunction. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and Coos County and Douglas County are interveners, Save the Riders Dunes is an intervener, but as one would expect, because of the cost of litigation, Douglas County's bearing quite a bit of the cost of getting through that, but we have a huge stake over there, and that's an important recreation facility for people of Douglas County and for our entire park system, so I appreciate your involvement.
So, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is commissioner comments. Commissioner Boyce, anything from you today?
I was over in Winchester Bay yesterday, and it was, coming off of probably the biggest weekend of the year. I have boots on the ground over there told me that there were several events happening within the harbor. The RV Expo was still happening when I was there yesterday. There were over the weekend we had in all of our camping facilities over there, including dry camping, which is out on the middle spit there where folks just pull up and park and not hooked up to anything. We had a total of 5 spaces available between the RV resort, dry camping, Windy Cove A and B, and Umpqua Dunes. There were 5 spaces open this weekend. So it was busy over there.
Anything else?
That's it for me today.
Commissioner Freeman?
Nothing for me.
Nothing from me today either, so thank you all for attending. I'm gonna adjourn the meeting.